Good morning, class 6. Today we will do the last chapter of your history book, Traders, Kings, and Pilgrims. Jagni at the market. Jagini looked forward to the fair in the village. She loved to see and touch the pots and pans of shiny steel, bright plastic bucket, cloth printed with brilliant floral designs, and clockwork toys, all of which came from the city. The men who spread out their wares came in buses and trucks and went back at the end of the day. Why were they always on the move? She wondered. Her mother explained that they were traders, people who bought things where they were made and sold them elsewhere. So this is they are talking about a girl, Jagini, and she enjoys visiting a fair where fair is sort of a place where traders they come and they all sell their goods, and it is for few days. So she was like she used to find traders or the people coming and going, so she was a little bit surprised, but then her mother explained it to her that they are traders and it is their job that they purchase things from one place and then move to other place where they sell it off. How to find out about trade and traders. You read about the northern black polished ware in chapter 8. This fine pottery, especially bowls and plates, were found from several archaeological sites throughout the subcontinent. How do you think it reached these places? Traders may have carried them from the places where they were made to sell them at other places. South India was famous for gold, spices, especially pepper, and precious stones. Pepper was particularly valued in the Roman Empire, so much so that it was known as black gold. So traders carried many of these goods to Rome in ships across the sea and by land in the caravans. There must have been quite a lot of trade, as many Roman gold coins have been found in South India. Can you think of how and why these reached India? So, we all know that, India was known for spices, and traders from the foreign countries they came to purchase these spices from here, and they took it to their country where they sold it off. So obviously, when this process was being done, these things will be their coins could be easily found because they gave those coins in return. A poem about trade. We can find evidence of trade in the Sangam poems. Here is one which describes the goods brought into Pohar, an important port on the east coast. Here are brought swift prancing horses by sea in ships, bales of black pepper in carts, gems and gold born in the Himalayas, sandalwood born in the western hills, the pearls of the southern sea, and corals from the eastern ocean, the yield of the Ganga and the crops from the Kaveri, foodstuffs from Sri Lanka, pottery from Myanmar, and other rare and rich imports. Make a list of all these things that are mentioned. What would they be used for? So, obviously, we can see that a lot of things were brought and were taken from our country to other countries. Traders explored several sea routes. Some of these followed the coast. There were other across the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, where sailors took advantage of the monsoon wind to cross the sea more quickly. So, if they wanted to reach the western coast of the subcontinent from East Africa or Arabia, they chose to sail with the southwest monsoon, and sturdy ships had to be built for these long journeys. New kingdoms along the coast. The southern half of the subcontinent is marked by a long coastline and with hills, plateaus, and river valleys. Amongst the river valleys, that of the Kaveri is the most fertile. Chiefs and kings who controlled the river valleys and the coast became rich and powerful. Sangam poems mention the Movida, this is a Tamil word meaning there are three chiefs, used for the heads of three ruling families, the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas, who became powerful in South India around 2300 years ago. Each of the three chiefs had two centers of power, one inland and one on the coast. Of these six cities, two were very important: Pohar or Kaveri Pattanam, the port of the Cholas, and Madurai, the capital of Pandyas. The chiefs did not collect regular taxes. Instead, they demanded and received gifts from the people. They also went on military expedition and collected tribute from neighboring areas. They kept some of the wealth and distributed the rest amongst their supporters, including members of their family, soldiers, and poets. Many poets whose compositions are found in the Sangam collection poem composed poems in their praise of chief who often rewarded them with precious stones, gold horses, elephants, chariots, and fine clothes. Around 200 years later, a dynasty known as the Satavahanas became powerful in western India. The most important ruler of the Satavahanas was Gautami Putra Sri Satkarni. We know about him from an inscription composed on behalf of his mother, Gautami Balashri. He and other Satvahana rulers were known as Lords of Dakshinpat. Literally, the route leading to the south, which was also used as name for entire southern region. He sent his army to the eastern, western, and southern coast. Why do you think he wanted to control the coast? Obviously, because to the coast only the things were coming and going, so that was a like good way to have the influence. The rich, glossy colors of silk, as well as its rich, smooth texture, make it a highly valued fabric in most societies. Making silk is a complicated process. Raw silk has to be extracted from the cocoons of silkworm, spun into thread, and then woven into cloth. Techniques of making silk were first invented in China around 7,000 years ago. While the methods remained a closely guarded secret for thousands of years, some people from China who went to distant lands on foot, horseback, and on camel carried silk with them. The path was they followed came to be known as Silk Route. So this is the reason why that path has been given the name as Silk Route. Sometimes Chinese rulers sent gifts of silk to rulers in Iran and West Asia. And from there, the knowledge of silk spread further west. About 2000 years ago, wearing silk became the fashion amongst rulers and rich people in Rome. It was very expensive, as it had to be brought all the way from China along dangerous roads through mountains and desert. People living along the route often demanded payment for allowing traders to pass through. Now, look at map 6, which shows the Silk Route and its branches. Some kings tried to control large portions of the route. This was because they could benefit from taxes, tributes, and gifts that were brought by traders traveling along the route. In return, they often protected the traders who passed through their kingdom from attacks by robbers. The best known of the rulers who controlled Silk Route were the Kushans, who ruled over Central Asia and Northwest India around 2000 years ago. Their two major centers of their power were Peshawar and Mathura. Takshila was also included in the kingdom. During their rule, a branch of Silk Route extended from Central Asia down to the seaport at the mouth of river Indus, from where silk was shipped westwards to the Roman Empire. The Kushans were amongst the earliest rulers of the subcontinent to issue gold coins. These were used by traders along the Silk Route. The spread of Buddhism. The most famous Kushan ruler was Kanishka, who ruled around 1900 years ago. He organized a Buddhist council where scholars met and discussed important matters. Ashwagosha, a poet who composed a biography of Buddha, that is, the Buddhacharit, lived at his court. Ashwagosha and other Buddhist scholars now began writing in Sanskrit. A new form of Buddhism known as Mahayana Buddhism now developed. This had two distinct features. Earlier, the Buddha's presence was shown in sculptures by using certain signs. For instance, his attainment of enlightenment was shown by sculpture of the peepal tree. Now statues of Buddha were made. Many of these were made in Mathura, while others were made in Takshila. The second change was a belief in Bodhisattva. These were supposed to be persons who had attained enlightenment. Once they attained enlightenment, they could live in complete isolation and meditate in peace. However, instead of doing that, they remained in the world to teach and help other people. The worship of Bodhisattva became very popular and spread throughout Central Asia, China, and later to Korea and Japan. Buddhism also spread to western and southern India, where dozens of caves were hollowed out of hills for monks to live in. Some of these caves were made on the orders of kings and queens, others by merchants and farmers. These were often located near passes through the Western Ghat. Roads connecting prosperous spots on the coast with cities in the Deccan ran through these passes. Traders probably halted in these caves monasteries during their travel. Buddhism also spread southeastward to Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and other parts of Southeast Asia, including Indonesia. The older form of Buddhism, known as Theravada Buddhism, was more popular in these areas. The quest of the pilgrims. As traders journeyed to distant lands in the caravans and ships, pilgrims often traveled with them. Pilgrims are men and women who undertake journey to holy places in order to offer worship. The best known of these are the Chinese Buddhist pilgrims Fayan, who came to subcontinent about 1600 years ago, Xuanzang, who came around 1400 years ago, Ai Qing, who came about 50 years after Xuanzang. They came to visit places associated with the life of Buddha, as well as famous monasteries. Each of these pilgrims left an account of this journey. They wrote of the dangers they encountered on their travels, which often took years of the countries and the monasteries that they visited, and the books they carried back with them. Okay, so these pilgrims, they visited a country for seeing the monasteries and to come to know or study about the life of Buddha. How Fahen returned to China. Fahen began his journey back home from Bengal. He boarded a ship belonging to some merchants. They had barely traveled for 2 days when they were caught in a storm. The merchants began throwing their merchandise overboard so as to lighten the load and save the ship from sinking. Fahen threw away his meager personal belongings, but clung to his books and the statue of Buddha that he had collected. Finally, the storm subsided after 13 days. This is how he described the sea. The sea itself is boundless in extent. It is impossible to know east or west. Except by observing the sun, moon, or stars in their motion, if it is a dark, rainy weather, the only plan is to steer by the wind. It took him more than 90 days to reach Java, where he halted for 5 months before boarding another merchant ship that took him to China. Xuanzang, who took the land route back to China through the northwest and Central Asia, carried back with him statues of the Buddha made of gold, silver, and sandalwood, and over 600 manuscripts loaded on the back of 20 horses. Over 50 manuscripts were lost when the boat on which he was crossing the Indus capsized. He spent the rest of his life translating the remaining manuscript from Sanskrit into Chinese. Nalanda, a unique center of Buddhist learning. Xuanzang and other pilgrims spent time studying in Nalanda. It's considered as one of the, it was one of the greatest universities of those times, and it is said that Behlul Lodi destroyed this university completely because he had a belief that the people who are learned, they are only going to overthrow the ruler from the throne. So the teachers are men of the highest ability and talent. They follow the teachings of Buddha in all sincerity. The rules of the monastery are strict and everyone has to follow them. Discussions are held throughout the day, and the old and the young mutually help one another. Learned men from different cities come here to settle their doubts. The gatekeeper asks new entrants difficult questions. They are allowed to enter only after they have been able to answer these. 7 or 8 out of every 10 are not able to answer. Okay, it was believed that the learned person used to stand at the gate and ask questions if somebody has to enter into the university. If they were able to answer the questions, then only they were allowed to enter the university. The beginning of Bhakti. This was also the time when the worship of certain deities, which became a central feature of later Hinduism, gained in importance. These deities included Shiva, Vishnu, and goddesses such as Durga. These deities were worshipped through bhakti, an idea that became very popular at this time. Bhakti is generally understood as a person's devotion to his or her chosen deity. Anybody, whether rich or poor, belonging to the so called high or low caste, men or women, could follow the path of bhakti. The idea of bhakti is present in the Bhagavad Gita, a sacred book of the Hindus, which is included in the Mahabharata. See chapter 11. In this, Krishna, the god, asked Arjun, his devotee and friend, to abandon all dharmas and take refuge to him, as only he can set Arjun free from every evil. This form of worship gradually spread to different parts of the country. Those who followed the system of bhakti emphasized devotion and individual worship of God or goddesses rather than the performance of elaborate sacrifices. According to this system of belief, if a devotee worships the chosen deity with a pure heart, the deity will appear in the form in which he or she may desire. So the deity could be thought of as human being, lion, tree, or any other form. Once this idea gained acceptance, artists made beautiful images of these deities. Bhakti comes from the Sanskrit term bhaj, means to divide or share. This suggests an intimate two-way relationship between the deity and the devotee. Bhakti is directed towards Bhagavat, which is often translated as God, but also means as one who possesses and shares bhag, literally good fortune or bliss. The devotee known as the Bhakt or the Bhagavat shares his or her chosen deity's bhag. A poem by a Bhakt. Most Bhakti literature tells us that riches, learning, and high status do not automatically ensure a close relationship with the deity. This is a part of poem composed in Tamil by Appar, a devotee of Shiva, who lived about 1400 years ago. Appar was a Villala, the leaper with rotting limbs, the man who is regarded as low by the Brahmin, even the scavenger, even these men, if they are servants, that is devotees, or him of him who shelter the Ganga in his long hair, that is Shiva, I worship them, they are gods to me. Because the deities were special and these images of the deity were often placed with special homes, places that we describe as temple, you will learn more about them in chapter 11. Bhakti inspired some of the best expressions in art, sculpture, poetry, and architecture. Hindu. The word Hindu, like the term India, is derived from the river Indus. It was used by Arabs and Iranians to refer to people who lived to the east of the river and to their cultural practices, including religious beliefs. So, initially, it was not the religion, it got the form of a religion in the later part. Elsewhere, almost 2000 years ago, Christianity emerged in West Asia. Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem, which was then part of Roman Empire. Christ's teaching were that he was the savior of the world. He also taught people to treat others with love and trust others, just as they themselves wanted to be treated. Here are few verses from the Bible, the holy book that contains the teachings of Christ. Blessings are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Christ's teachings appeal to ordinary people and spread through West Asia, Africa, and Europe. The first Christian preacher came from West Asia to the west coast of the subcontinent within 100 years of Christ's death. The Christians of Kerala, known as Syrian Christians because they probably came from West Asia, are amongst the oldest Christian communities in the world. With this, we end the chapter here. I'll send you the question answers of the chapter. Please do them in your notebook. Thank you, class. Take care of yourselves.